the new secondary principal, co-principal of Danville School. And, I'm hoping to contribute some facilitation skills and lots of listening. And we want to go next or last, Sarah?
I can go next. I just recorded it just so everyone knows that, but that way we can have it for other people. I'm Sarah Welch. I'm the elementary principal. I apologize for not being in person. I'm home with my kids tonight. So, but yeah, and I'm excited for what this future project, the potential that it holds for Danville and our students here. So.
Maybe the next there.
Yes. Please.
Randy Rothburn, the kindergarten through 12th grade athletic director here at the school. So obviously I have some interest there with the potential changes that would be taking place specifically to athletics. Also a community member who has two daughters that attend school here in Will for quite a while.
Dave Schilling, the Technical Experiential Learning Director here at Danville and was former co-principal for a few years. So with that, I hope that I can lend both a sense of what students who are non-traditional learners who need a hands-on experience would need in a school environment, and also having some knowledge of the building from my time here.
Doug Pasquilla, I'm a resident of the town of Danville, been around a while. Participated in a lot of town activities and stuff. My kids all went through Danville School. My wife was participated a lot in a lot of things with the school. I have, a reasonable amount of building knowledge and things of that nature. And I had talked to a couple people when I first heard about all this, and I honestly just wanted to get involved first off to find out what is going on. And I have a somewhat of an open mind. I have some skepticism about certain things that I've heard, and that's part of the reason why I am participating, because I want to, hear the whole thing, what's going on, instead of just talking, about other things.
Great, thank you. Let's go to this gentleman and then the hat and back.
So
No, him first, thank you, sorry.
first, and then
You guys can put it out, but if you don't mind, I'll go ahead. Sorry about that.
John Blackmore, resident of Danville. I've had two sons go through Danville and graduate and move on. I have a grandson who's 7 years old. I'm just basically, I would share some of what you said. I've heard a lot of different things, and it's okay. Well, the best way to figure this out is to serve, and so that's what I decided to do. And I haven't done anything like this in a long time, and so I figured, well, this is important, and I should do it.
Yeah.
I'm Marvin Willis. I was named the supervisor here for over 30 years. I've been a member of the community of Danville my whole life. I'm 68 years old. I think I bring to just tonight's meeting, I'm not on the board, but I bring a little bit of common sense to this meeting. Because I know more about this school than anybody in Danville.
I'm Katie White. I'm a resident of Danville and a parent of two young kids in the school. So I'm hoping to bring perspective of a parent of kids who are going to be here for a long time to this.
Great. We'll back row and then back to you. Okay.
Yeah, I'm Thomas Edgar. I'm a student here. So I kind of want to learn what's going on and be able to maybe offer some perspective as a student.
Great.
All right, student perspective.
I'm Melissa Conley. I'm a board member, but also a community member and a parent of a middle schooler. Here tonight to listen so I can have sort of thoughts, when this works its way through back to the board. But also, obviously, as a parent, I have a very invested interest in the space that my daughter will go to school in.
I'm Dave Cole. I'm vice chair of the board. I've been on the school board 13 years. From the first day of first grade to graduation was right in
in this school, or actually half of the school. We got 4 kids that graduated from here, and my wife works here for 20-something years.
And I'm Ballet. I was in the class of 63. And I'm an architect. I also was the design manager for the Anchorage School District for over 10 years. And if I can bring that perspective and be helpful from that perspective, that is my goal.
Thank you.
My name's Gary Farrow. My dad grew up in Walden. My mom grew up in West Danville. I'm now retired. I spent most of my working life in Massachusetts. While there, I did serve on a school committee for 5 years, and what they say about school committees is often that, it's $1 million experience. You can't get that experience anyplace else. Plus, they couldn't, if they paid me $1 million, I wouldn't do it again. So, but it was a good experience. And I've also had some experience on a building committee where we were constructing a new elementary school. So I got some experience going through that process in terms of the actual construction. And education is important to me, so it's an area where I'd like to serve.
And last but not least.
I'm Eric Hewitt. I live in Danville, have a son that goes here. Had a foreign exchange daughter last year that went here as well. Yeah, so just wanted to help out where I could. So.
Great, thank you. So an important thing to keep in mind about the work we're going to do over the next few months and such is that we are an advisory group. We're open to the public. The meeting is, the link is shared, it's being recorded. The minutes that today Sarah is taking them, will eventually be posted so that the community can see any and all of what we do. And hopefully people will come. There's some who aren't on, the list that I knew about, and they're here, and that's great. That is the point. And that's wonderful. And it's really important to be clear, we are not a decision-making body. We're an advisory group. Our goal ultimately, and this is repeated a couple of times in these minutes, is to look at all the information and forward possibly a recommendation even to the board. The board will make any decisions about what goes to voters. The board will make any decision about any decisions at all. That's the board's job. And to be clear about that, we don't have more than 2 board members, so that this is not also a board meeting. That's intentional. That's why the board chair is not here, or the other 2 members and such, the other members. Our job is to advise the school board. And so hopefully we'll stick that out. We'll learn a lot over the next few months and give them our view as a group, their views as a group. Are there questions about that? Or anyone have any comments about that they'd care to share at this point? All right.
I just have a question. Was it advertised, this meeting advertised?
I believe it was. I don't know how. I know that it was in today's newspaper.
I got word. If it wasn't, it should.
Yeah, I agreed. I know, like I said, it was in today's paper, in the Caledonia Record. I don't know how else though. There's a suggestion that that as we go forward, we come up with some sort of leadership structure for this group. And the board has asked us to consider finding somebody who is neutral or has played the role of neutral moderator. So we're asking Tom Zabrowski, who's not available tonight, if he's willing to do it. I would be thrilled not to facilitate. If he's not, if the group wills it, I'd happily facilitate. I can't lead the effort for a building project of any sort because I have a day job and then other issue, other family and stuff. But for sure, you know, Sarah and I will be here to be part of the group. And so we'll have to figure that out kind of as we go forward as a group.
Question,
Yes, sir.
did you speak to Tom Zabrowski?
I think Clayton did.
Okay,
Is that correct, Sarah?
Yeah, so Clayton has already asked if he would be interested, and Tom said, yes, he's interested in that. But we haven't formally asked him yet. We wanted it to the group to agree. And then as we decide on the future meetings, we would invite him for that from here.
so you've invited him, which I think is an excellent idea. Do you need a motion from this group to be able to do that, or just not worry about it?
Well, you know, we don't have, well, Mr. Toll's gonna say something.
I think,
Save me there.
okay, it was originally gonna be a committee.
Yeah.
Okay, and if it's committee, everything has to be warned properly and, and I'm not sure what the warning requires for an advisory group,
Okay.
if there's any warning needed. That's an interesting,
Right,
question
right, we're
that-
in that gray
so if-
zone.
the question is, do we advertise, you know, we're gonna be we're gonna be meeting tonight, you know, and post it. You have to, as a committee, I'm not sure if you have to as an advisory group, but we should.
Right,
Should.
right.
Because
I agree with
open
that.
to the public.
Yeah, so I
No, you
think,
should.
For Roberts,
yeah,
and maybe for tonight, like you said, you know, there might be a conflict of interest. You can have a temporary moderator until
you know, if we were a,
Dr. Zabrowski's able.
right, if we were a formal board, one of the first things we would do is elect a leadership structure, agree to use Robert's rule. I mean, there's all those steps that a formal board takes at its organizational meeting each year. Not being one, I guess maybe you know, is there anyone who wants to speak for or against asking Tom to do this?
I'll speak for.
Anyone else?
If he's willing.
If he's
to do
willing,
it,
sure, ask him, yeah.
He did bring it up to me.
It probably wouldn't be a bad idea to have somebody fairly, you know,
Yeah,
neutral.
he was a bit concerned. In that he hasn't got much of a background in this stuff. But I said, that would be
That might be
great.
perfect.
Because he wasn't-
Yeah.
And he thought, well, I'll think about it. But he brought it up to me.
Okay,
Good.
I think it's important too that, you know, as school staff, we have bring a lot to the table as far as educational perspective, background, instructional dynamics and how spaces should be organized. But at the end of the day, it's your community's process and we shouldn't be put in a place of feeling like we were trying to lead the process in one direction or another. We want to be effective resources, we're strong advocates for our kids, but it's not our meeting.
right.
It's Danville's meeting.
And so, not hearing any argument against inviting Tom, and this is your last chance, are we all, doing a formal vote here? I don't know, like, you know, as we said, these crazy things. I'm okay with saying we got enough, you know, and no one spoke against.
Not only to support that, but to show the group's support for Dr. Zabrowski.
So you said we should do a vote,
I believe we should.
so then,
We do
All
not
in favor of-
have, we don't have
So-
to though, because we're not a committee, we're an advisory group, so I think.
right, so we're choosing to, the suggestion is that we vote as a show of support that the whole group, or as much of the group that votes that way has, you know. So we'll see, you know, not having to, but choosing to vote, let's go for it.
You could say that a consensus,
Right, we could do that. Or, Dave's suggesting a vote.
Yeah.
I'm okay sticking with consensus.
And consensus agree.
Right. Right. So wait, I'm sorry, you want me to vote and say consensus? Is that what you just said?
He's saying the voters to see if they're,
Right.
what the consensus is.
Okay,
Is that accurate?
okay.
Well, no, actually,
Yeah, I think consensus is when you don't take a vote, right?
Dave brought up
Yeah,
that thought and the consensus of the group, I guess, unless somebody else
Yeah.
wants to speak up, that we take a vote
okay,
Oh, yeah.
all
in
right, so
support of that.
then all in favor of asking Tom Zabrowski to facilitate these meetings? Indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? And any abstentions? So that is unanimous.
Yeah.
I don't know, Marvin, you're here,
I'm
But
here,
you're-
but I'm not.
you're not,
Well, I'm not on.
Okay.
I wasn't invited. I don't know why I wasn't, but.
but you're here, so. Let's go with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 votes for yes, and just leave it at that. Because that's pretty overwhelming either way. All right, so, okay, so let's go with 13 votes for yes. Let's just do it. Let's just go for it, because we're not an official committee. And then it's unanimous. Okay, I don't ask about unanimous.
And Larry, we've got 2 people that are on the webinar as attendees
I'm
that
sorry.
we didn't get to introduce. I didn't see them at the initial introduction time.
I'm sorry about that. Yeah, and I have my back turned to the screen, and I apologize for that.
So I'm gonna hopefully make it so they can both talk. There's one. All right, Bruce, you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
good evening, everyone. This is Bruce Melendi. I was planning to be there in person, but I coach soccer. And by the time I got done soccer practice, I didn't really have time to go change. And you probably didn't want to have a sweaty soccer coach sitting near you. So I did have time to get back to my camper though. So I don't have my video on. I don't know if I can with the webinar because it's a little windy here and I'm outside. But anyway, I've lived in Danville since 1991. I have 3 children who all graduated from Danville. I have 7 grandchildren. 4 of them currently go to Danville. Another one probably will unless they move before she starts school. And I've served 2 terms on the school board from 99 to 2004. I was chair the last couple years. And then I just was on the board again from 2016 till this past year when I decided not to seek re-election. But I was on the board as we started the process of evaluating our building and realizing that we need to do some work. So when I got off the board, I was asked if I'd be willing to be on the building committee. And I certainly am willing to do that as time allows, but I am coaching 2 soccer teams. So I'll do my best to participate as much as I can.
Great, thank you.
And Andrew, do you want to introduce yourself?
Hear me all right?
Yep.
Yep, Andrew McGregor from the Caledonian Record, just observing. And I would also say there may be value in this group just double checking open meeting law. I know it applies to any committee or subcommittee created by a public body to do its work. So I'm not saying I know better than you guys, but you might just want to double check about your requirements for minutes and warnings. Thanks a lot.
Yep, great.
Thanks, Andrew. Just so you know, we're specifically an advisory group, not a committee or a subcommittee. We'll make sure the warnings and stuff happen for everybody, but that was a piece that we had discussed too, but we'll double check.
Yeah, that may be a distinction without a difference.
Okay. So there are a couple things that when inviting the group to form, the board asked for a few ground rules. once we get started, as we're getting started, we can make or change them. I mean, we're not, since we are not a group of 4, we could certainly change these, but we're starting off with them because that was the charge from them. This I've said already, you cannot take action on your own, only advise the Danville School Board on a recommended course of action. We've come up with a minimum of having 6 people as a minimum to meet. A board member, a principal, and 4 community members of any type, of all types. Hopefully we have a big crowd or, a group this size on a regular basis. That'd be great. And we can add new members without a process designed for us. So congratulations, Marvin. And maybe Gary also, right? I think congratulations. You're on the advisory group. If you show up, you're here. So those are kind of just a few rules that we will certainly as a group be able to, decide how we function as we go. There's a few things that we want to make sure to cover tonight. The first one is the video tour. Now, could I get a show of hands of who has actually already seen it or participated in a live tour of the building? In June, Dave? Was it in June?
Excuse me, May or June. I think.
Yeah, spring. So is there anyone who hasn't or has no real? So a couple of you.
Maybe the best thing to do, since most everybody else has seen it, I
Yeah.
can just watch it on YouTube.
If you're okay with that, that's
Yeah,
great.
I am too.
Okay, and if either of you need the link sent to you, see me at the end. And I can email it to you because it might be easier than trying to type
You
it.
can email it to me.
Okay.
Blackmore2@charter.net.
Email.
Under Dolores or?
No, that's me.
We have that address in the email
Yeah.
from Clayton, right, Sarah?
I'm doing it right now, Larry.
You're doing it right now.
Yep.
So good job,
Thank you.
Sarah. Thank you.
Thanks, Dave.
Who's gonna bing now?
He just said it, so.
Yeah,
Just
yeah.
type it in before I forget.
Thank you.
Blackmore2.
And then also
Sure.
Gary, right?
Mhm.
You want us to email it to you as well, or do you have it? Good.
Yeah, probably can be.
Dave is going to do that right now, apparently.
That's fine, I'll just-
GJ Farrell, FARROW @gmail.com.
On its way.
Thank you.
Great. I'm gonna, Sarah, do you know what the second bullet is there under discussion and what we're meant to actually, what the suggestion was that we do?
I think, so part of when we did the live tours, we had some discussion time with Cam and could ask questions and things like that. And seeing as almost everybody here has already seen the video, some of you have been back in the building in different capacities since then. I think it might be a good time to just answer some questions that maybe have arisen from it or things that you're still curious about that we can work to address in future meetings as well.
Okay, so then if anyone wants to either ask a question or make a statement about what they believe the needs are, from the knowledge we have at the moment, this is a great time, and we'll gather it and either answer or put on the next agenda how to answer it or something.
I was just wondering how this sort of effort got going, what were the events that sort of kicked off, why we're doing this.
I'm going to ask someone who's here, as I started on July 1st, to answer that one. Dave or Dave?
Yeah, and Sarah.
Or Sarah.
I think Sarah and I can.
Yeah.
take this one.
Yeah, sorry, I didn't mean to. I forgot
Basically,
the screen.
basically, they started when we realized we were out of space. We have been perpetually shuffling elementary classrooms. There's a classroom down by the gym that was always sort of the last ditch effort to put an elementary school and classroom in place. 4 years ago when I started, or well, now 5 years ago when I started as principal, I was told that we were adding a third preschool classroom without a classroom to put it in. And we shuffled some things and combined some things and made it work. So that space need was the impetus for this. Along the way, we also realized that there were some mechanical challenges in the school and some different maintenance that had to be addressed that led to asking Schwartz Collins to come in as we screened through architecture firms. We discounted one of them based on we basically picked, we had 3 architecture firms walk through and give us some ideas. We picked the one that seemed to have the most reputable answers. And we asked them to do a full community assessment of the building, what the teachers see they need, what parents see they need. They kicked this off with a community meeting 3 years ago, right before COVID. And so we had just had a subset of parents and teachers and community members coming in to give their opinion and to be a part of this conversation, and then COVID hit, and we paused everything for quite a while. So Sarah, fill in where I'm missing on this, because I think that's really, it started with a space need, ended up with a mechanical challenge, and led us to sort of where we are now.
Yeah, I think that's a big piece. I think the lack of space that's designed for kids, and with kids in mind, was a big piece of making this shift and this start. And then also really looking at how do we continue to move Danville School forward and make this building able to be used to educate, kind of like what Katie said, educate our kids who are going to be here for the next 10, 15, even beyond years, and making sure that we have the capacity to do so. And so that was a big driving force behind it.
Question. Have you projected for the future, or can you, as to what you think the population of the school will be?
I think in that report, it's.
Yeah, it's in the report. It's in the report. There were projections done by both the school board and by, go back and look at data, and what
This report is where?
this report is the facilities. Are you talking about the facilities report?
Yeah, the big one, 100 and something pager.
Yep.
It was my homework when I got hired. But I could,
Study that too.
yeah, that's right.
Pages.
It's a big report, a lot of photos. That's why it's so big.
I asked specifically that how many students this would be built for, and Kim said 450.
What's
You're
the
talking about
population?
the new proposed school.
The new
If we were to-
proposed
yeah.
school.
Anything that we do would be for a capacity of 450, so that's the addition or a new proposed school.
Okay,
Right.
in other words, addition.
So like
to the
you
school.
gotta, the 450 is the bogey that you have to hit somehow. Right, that's what they're saying. How do we do that?
Where are you at now?
I just
300,
knew,
about 380.
yeah, I was gonna say
380?
375.
Yeah.
Well, I have a comment that I had the last time I attended. When I was coaching baseball here in 1997, our school number was 509.
Marvin, I've searched every record and I've not found any evidence of that. I'm sorry, like we've asked the superintendent to go back and look at that data, and I have not found a 509 number. Yeah, I found roughly around the 380 and 420, somewhere in between those numbers, but I'm really curious where that 509 number comes in, because I just never, I have not had anybody, nobody's been able to verify that.
Well, they should be able to, because that was a number we changed. We changed from Division 4 to Division 3, which gives you some idea of the number. And just the fact that we went Division 3.
What year was this, Barbara?
1997, approximately in there. It was in the middle of my coaching, because I coached Division 4 a couple of years and then Division 3 for 3 years, because once you got into a division, you stay for 3 years.
I have a suggestion.
Yeah.
Or we get a yearbook and count the bases.
That's a good idea.
Yeah, I think we actually did. So I'm happy to grab a 96, 97 yearbook and.
We should have a tally somewhere. That's knowledge that we should have somewhere in the archives. It tells us how many students we have.
Yeah.
One of the challenges is that the elementary students weren't in the yearbook up until a few years ago, so there's that, but but when we looked at senior classes were like 30 to 40, anyway. But again, I asked the superintendent's office to again give us numbers and make those numbers public.
You know,
So I have one question. So let's assume 1997 is 509. Has there been changes in law or regulations that create an issue with that 509 number?
Not with the number, but with square footage of instructional space per student. Yes.
So in other words,
Yeah,
back then,
except that
it might have
many.
been not the same square footage that is required
Correct.
by the Department of Education.
Absolutely.
So
we don't go by 30 square feet per student.
Each
My knowledge
space
is
is,
30 square feet. And then
I had to look at each space.
Yeah, each space has to be Yeah,
And
different
the
uses.
30 square feet per student doesn't help me.
program
We've got a preschool classroom of 20. And
Preschool was 50 square feet.
Per kid, yeah.
as
That's
Rob
big.
said, you know, with his experience here, you look at the spaces. And you have
Because I
to,
know I had in my file a square foot of each classroom and a student number that would fit so that we didn't exceed that ever in any classroom.
So has that, has that changed from what he's saying, or is there?
yeah, the state has current guidelines and I can't speak to 1996 as a.
No, I'm talking about now, I'm talking about now,
Just
Yeah.
maybe for reference, we could just get the guidelines.
Sure, absolutely.
yeah, that's a good one.
Who's gonna get those?
The square footage numbers.
Who's gonna retrieve the guidelines?
I'm gonna ask the superintendent's office to help us
Yeah.
do that.
And maybe it's generally.
I'm not sure who
I'm
will
doing
do
it right
it,
now, again.
but I also will have Dave.
I'm happy, Larry, to be your designated.
Dave will do it. Anything you ask me, Dave's gonna do. I like this.
The other thing-
It's in the standard about educational specifications, which each state or each entity develops. See. And it's actually, but you have each of the areas and each of them. About to get a specified square footage for each area, like a gym, for example, is equal with a classroom. And things like that.
Right, because again, if you're going by just X number of square feet per student,
Right.
counting your gym is.
Yeah.
Doesn't really speak to instructional need. to the
Right.
extent that you have a gym.
Are there other requirements? State state regs that might apply to how big the building is, or?
I wonder, is it in EQS, educational quality standards? I know they
Yeah.
do staffing ratios. I don't recall.
Yeah, I'm not
Maybe
speaking about specifically
size.
his office in the.
That's the document I would look in,
State
but
Journal gives us. Yeah.
Is it also possible that 100+ page report? Where do we find that?
That's on the school board website, but I'll send it, I can send it actually link to everybody.
Thank you.
This is what happened, basically what happened when they did a review of the current building. They have.
Yeah, no,
Yeah.
that whatever the review is,
yeah.
we can send that in a link. That will.
And when I said 100, I meant 211.
It's 211.
I had it open on a tab because I did study it at one point.
It's a serious report.
It's,
It's a very, very serious.
yeah,
Yeah, this was.
it goes into depth on every crack.
No, I understand.
Yeah.
I understand.
And I thought there was enrollment info in there, but
So they must have done, as part of the study, they must have measured every single room.
perhaps.
Is that on that 200+ page study?
I think with that number. Per feet per student. It's different for science rooms,
Yeah,
Right.
different for preschool rooms.
right.
Most classrooms are all 30 square, it used to be all 30 square feet per student. But
That's,
labs and science rooms were a little more.
yeah,
Early education was a little more. So there's a variant in some rooms. It's all done by the state.
Right. One of the challenges that we see now, it's mentioned in the video and in my 7 days of school here so far, I think I'm up to 7, that it's really clear we've got staff trying to run some kind of program, whether it's a class or a counselor or something in spaces not remotely appropriate for the design for what they're doing. So, the room next to us, Rose Modry's English classroom. She has 15 or 20 kids packed in there some periods. It's tight. And we don't do rows across the front like many of us who went to school back in the old days. They're at tables there so they can be working together. Education is different and continues to evolve, and the space needs are there as well. So it's, there's the number of square feet itself, and the what we're going to do in it isn't the same over the decades. It changes appropriately so.
And schools have also taken on a lot of other services that
A
are
lot of other
there,
services.
occupational therapy, physical therapy.
Yeah, which we didn't, I used to have those.
Right,
Service.
right.
A lot of offices, a lot of
Involved.
smaller classrooms have been repurposed to serve these needs.
I have a suggestion that it would be good. If this group could eventually reach a consensus on a vision for what we want the school to be. I've heard suggestions that we drop the high school and just and then only with a grade school. Or that we close the school even, and say, okay, we'll go to other schools.
Right, right.
Or that we end up with a public John's St. Johnsbury Academy that would draw in a lot of other students from other areas. It'd be good if we could reach consensus eventually. It may take a while.
I think maybe.
Yeah, I think Dave has, yeah, Dave has.
I think it was 8 years ago, a study was done. If you take every employee in high school, which would also be the secondary principal, I'm just
Start with me.
and think all that money you're saving, but all the money that it's gonna cost, and the study was done to send everybody to the academy, because it's, you don't know, people might go to U32 or wherever,
Right.
so that was done, and it was going to be, I think, almost $1 million more to close the high school down completely
And tuition.
and tuition students.
Right.
And then it says, well, then we could take in more middle schoolers. Oh, no, you can't, because any kid here, now you have to increase your middle school staff and expenses and stuff like that. But the school board did vote last month that that school choice is not going to be an option. We don't, that's an excellent point, but the options that that this group needs to consider is option 1, 2, and 3. And I think option 1 is fix what needs to be fixed with no expansion. Number 2 is fix what needs to be fixed with an expansion. And the third one is completely brand new spanking school over there. And this facility gets torn down with the exception of the 1937 building.
Yep.
And I'd like to think CCSU would rent that at a premium. So, and then this area would be a nice soccer field. That would be option 3. Of course, option 4 could be not do anything or wait or something like that.
Now, Dave, didn't the school board just get an update in 2022 on that whole cost as part of that decision, and it was still much more expensive?
I believe Mark
Yes.
in
Yeah, I think it was also
July
adjustments.
Right.
brought some numbers
Yeah.
for
So
sure.
the earlier numbers don't apply anymore.
No, it was a very similar gap
Asked the business office to go back to the drawing board again and calculate choice again and got similar numbers.
and got a similar additional cost by tuitioning all high school kids.
Does anybody know the state aid on construction right now?
Does not exist.
It doesn't
There is
exist.
no current
So,
state reimbursement. for-
Whatever the cost is, the town's gonna pick it up.
I don't think that is totally accurate. Because of what was the money that's available.
So there are a couple things. One is that it goes through, it still goes through the ed funding process. So in ed funding, you have, and I'm gonna try to capture this, and the superintendent can explain it a lot better than I can. But essentially, you have some towns in Vermont that are essentially receiving towns, which receive additional funds, and ones that are sending towns, which send funds. Danville is a receiving town, which means a certain percentage of our school's budget comes from resident taxpayers. A certain percentage comes from non-resident taxpayers, second homeowners on Joe's Pond. And then the state there's a state piece to the rest of that. So it's not as small as you would think. I believe the numbers are in Rob or Dave or Sarah, somebody might have them, right? But it's about, you remember what they were? It's like 32, 37.
That's-
Yeah.
32 is what I remember.
Yeah, 32% resident taxpayers, mid-30s% non-resident taxpayers in the state. If you're talking about the rest.
So it's a third.
Yeah.
Basically a 34.
Easy math, thirds, yeah.
Yep. So the cost, Marvin, to a resident taxpayer would be roughly a third of the entire project. That's not- and to be really clear, that's not state aid, that's just the state infrastructure.
I guess that's what I meant.
Yeah.
Okay.
Indirectly.
Yeah, I mean,
It's
well,
hard to know.
back in the day, up to like 2012, the state actually just funded 30% on top of all projects. That's what
It used to be as high as 50.
Yeah, they're right. There was a time it was
Yeah.
higher. Yeah.
so that's gone.
What's your boil was 90.
Yep. Yeah.
So, I mean, that's what I'm looking for. Are they gonna check in, let someone, they're gonna reach the 40 or 50%.
The cost to resident taxpayers would be in the low 30%.
Of the project.
So if you had $1 million bill coming in.
Yeah.
Resident taxpayers are 30, a third of that, so it'd be 300,000,
300,000-ish.
roughly 350, let's say.
Yeah.
And then the poor Joe's Pond people would be hammered. Now, I'm a Danville lister, and their property values are exploding.
Yep.
And that would be an interesting dynamic.
Yeah.
And then, a third would be, the state would just pay more. So that would automatically?
I think Mr. Schilling said, for example, that's not just.
Oh, yeah.
He's not hammering
Oh,
on the.
yeah, no, this is an
So,
example.
yeah.
Just like our school budget, it's our school budget
I'm
$600.
reading this on my phone. So yeah,
We're recording it on there.
Public meeting and it's on Zoom as well.
Yeah.
This is exactly how our school budget is funded too. When you vote on a school budget, your taxes, resident taxpayers do not comprise 100% of that budget.
So on another, seeing in Burlington and their new high school and everything that they're going through.
Yep.
They're probably not a receiving sound town. I would think Burlington isn't. Just a pure guess.
Yeah.
So they're not gonna get tax money
You're talking about the windows.
from the third.
The new
Yeah.
Burlington High School.
Yeah, and there's probably, I'm certain there's non-residents in Burlington, obviously, but not a huge amount as compared to residents. I've heard $800 to $900 per taxpayer that's going on
In Burlington.
in Burlington
Yeah.
to build a new high school.
I would imagine based on population, you're correct, that Burlington would be a town that sets money in other towns.
And Mark shared with Larry and I today that he has a meeting in 2 weeks with the finance director from Winooski to talk a little bit about how that's the funding worked for them and how to have get a better calculation of the tax impact. So that depending on, hopefully that'll be ready depending on when our next meeting is set. So we'll have a little bit, it's still an estimate, but a better understanding of where that estimate lies.
Yes.
Just,
Yeah. Sorry.
as I understand it, we don't have to worry about alternatives like closing out on the high school and stuff like that. That's not part of our mission.
Right.
The basic mission is how do we meet the needs of current and future students cost effectively? And Mr. Tucker, I guess, is taking care of all the tax impact implications.
Yeah, at the direction of the board,
Right.
he's bringing them information
Right.
about that we'll be able to share. It'll be public information.
Right.
And he's getting help from someone who just has more information than he
Right.
does. Yes.
Perhaps I can meet with the architects and discuss. That estimate is based on standard construction and delivery of the project.
Okay.
And perhaps if we can explore other avenues like design build. We might reduce it a bit more. And even in the construction design, maybe other avenues, how we could explore and reduce that estimate. It wouldn't be a big reduction, but it might be worth it to explore that.
Okay.
And so one of the things that the board has requested of our advisory group is when we present them with a decision, if it's one of those three options, that's when we'll move forward with getting some more of that information. We have the three designs. The first one puts a really large elementary only addition and then renovation of the existing building. That design is the most vetted. And then we, Dave, Mark, I, and the board asked that Trex Collins to go back to the drawing board a little bit more and said, what are some other options? And so their second option has a smaller addition, again, designed for the elementary, kind of in where the current bus loop is. And then the third one was the new build because it wasn't dramatically different from the cost perspective. So once this group makes a decision and presents that to the board, then those designs would get vetted out further to have that more accurate, the more accurate numbers.
So, sorry. I guess we, at some point, we need to understand, you know, what assumptions were made to come up with the $70 million figure way, you know.
Yeah.
So we know what we're dealing with.
Yeah, and we can dig into what info we have. And I know that that was the one that was added, you know, the last piece was the least vetted, I think, by the architect. Is that correct?
That's the new bill?
Yeah, that was sort of the thing they added. They, at the board's request, came in at the end saying like, well, this is an option also.
Yeah,
So it's got a lot of less detailed design.
basically, when the reconstruction and addition, you know, the complete renovation bid was so high, the board asked the architects the question, well, if that's so high, what does a new school cost? And that's where we got that third number.
Right.
And so,
And it's just a back of the napkin number, like,
yeah,
if we decide to line the hallways with marble, et cetera, it goes up, right? So, that's the standard. Exactly, yeah, go for it. Ancient Greek Parthenon.
There you go. History
But
teacher here. So
but that's a really standard number. Like that is a straight, here's what building materials are, here's what labor is, here's how long this takes. This is like the back of the napkin number that every engineer has. If you go to an engineer today and you say, how much does a X thousand square foot school cost? They'll tell you.
Right.
So that's where that number is coming from. This is not a super well designed, et cetera. So I mean, there's a few options that we have that we can go through. They're detailed in that report, but I think it's beneficial to at least level set of what those options are, understand where everybody sits on that spectrum at this point, and then we can sort of go from there, because we can't really decide anything about the specifics of any of those things until we understand how we're moving forward anyway. So
right, and that's the advice we're giving is which of the three main paths do we want the board to move forward on? I think is really the role that we're charged with.
I think
Which
it's
do we think?
fair to say that we got to the point where like some of the costs was associated with them really digging in deep to this specific building started approaching that sort of back of the napkin number, which is why I was triggered.
Right.
Wait a second.
Are we going to attempt to poll more of the community, or is this board saying that we get to choose one of these options and present it to the school?
So I think that's an action item that we can decide on. And it sounds like we should. I mean, it's clear, you know, the more opportunities that people have to give opinions, I was gonna say the less they complain later, but that might not be true. The more opportunities they have to give opinions, at least, and we might capture some more really good information. And that's actually a nice segue. One way to do that is to increase membership, knowing that not everyone's gonna come every time anyway, but you know, do we want a larger group that comes on a regular basis? Do we want to just advertise the meetings more, catch who we can? We are hoping to get a couple teachers on, and currently the teachers who live in town weren't available tonight. I have one who maybe can come next time, but doesn't know when it is, but couldn't come tonight. Most of them said they're just not available. But we haven't put it out to all the non-resident teachers yet, and so we might ask if that makes sense to the group. So that, you know, we're getting the residents' perspective from you all. Yeah, up to date, right? And if we have teachers who are not residents, they would be purely representing a teacher's perspective. It wasn't what we were initially asked to do, but we're allowed to set our own members. So if the group's okay with it, Sarah and I will invite everyone else on staff to see who else wants to attend, because there's gonna be views. We just didn't start with them. So did I just make a motion kind of? For the group, is that okay with the group that we broaden our staff recruitment to see who else we can get from the teachers, paras, support staff? Because there's quite a few. Yeah, separately, two separate things we're talking.
Right.
The community members work, I think I'd be asking all of you to help do, especially because I'm new to the community. You know, our job, Sarah and my job is really the staff. If we can get a couple teachers, paras, support staff to show up to each of these meetings, we'll get a view we don't have now. Okay, so we'll do that. Sarah hopefully wrote it down so I remember that we just said that, and we'll try for the next meeting to have some teachers here. We tried for this one, but we'll try again.
Question.
I think you might have had a stand up.
Oh,
Sorry, then I'm gonna come back to you.
but Tom Zabrowski expressed to me a bit of concern on the beginning of his role. And I suggested we've had this Canel, who is a facilitator for large groups. Could draw out all of the concerns and expressions of everyone and at least put them on a board and kind of organize from that perspective. And after we go through that process, it says it'll be easier for Tom to do his thing.
Okay.
And Beth actually worked that process with us in our energy committee, and in the terrain station group, and it worked great. Okay, and if this group is interested, it would be good to bring her in at the beginning of our overall process. So that's a suggestion.
Yeah, okay. Let's see.
I have a question about that. I'm also on energy committee and Beth was awesome, but I'm wondering about timeline. We're trying to like present something to the town in November. It's September tomorrow. So I don't know if that's still true. I thought that used to be, the board was hoping for November. So I'm just wondering if we need maybe some rules about like what our timeline is and how this group is going to come to presenting something to the board. Does it have to be a unanimous decision? Like, are there going to be certain numbers of people that vote on something in order for us to decide? We need to I think we need to figure out those things.
I'm
Because
sure,
if
and
we're-
it's important if you are going to vote, you know, is it going to be a majority vote or a 2/3 vote
Right.
or something like that? I think it's important to decide that sooner than, I think we should put that at the top of the agenda or even go over that right now.
So
She's absolutely right.
I was wondering if we're inviting a bunch more community members to join. If there's 40 people that come to a meeting, do all 40 of those people get a vote? Especially if it's a different group every time.
And then the next meeting,
The next
15
meeting.
more people show up.
Right.
And if they haven't
done the homework, read the
Yeah,
reports.
going back.
I mean, half this group hasn't read the report, right?
Yeah.
So like, I mean, how can we expect the community at large to go through that? So that's Doug, but you had a concern, so I'm gonna shut up and let you speak.
Well, when I just heard this November, I guess somebody had mentioned that back a while ago to me. I have real concerns over that aspect of it. You're throwing around numbers of $70 million and looking to possibly, I'm not saying we should or shouldn't do it, but put the town in debt and raise everybody's taxes for the next 20 years or better, significantly.
Right.
I think it deserves a little more due diligence than just trying to throw a few meetings together and say, yeah, this is what we should do. And Marvin can certainly vouch for this. On the select board, we fretted over, raising the budget by a couple $100,000 because it was gonna raise the tax rate by a little bit, one way or another, buying a fire truck or whatever, something obviously we needed. But even then, there was questions over what needed to be done. And so when we're kind of throwing these numbers out there, I think, in my opinion, we need to take our time and not have a arbitrary day that we gotta decide something.
Sure, that
So-
makes a lot of sense. I think,
She had her hand raised.
then, yep.
I was gonna say, Doug, to your point, exactly, and that the November date was thrown around when we were hopeful that we would be able to start meeting as an advisory group much earlier in the spring. So that is even per Mark and per Truex Cullen's recommendations, that's off the table for exactly those pieces that you said. We want to make sure that we can get information to the community and make sure that we have that out. So then the next piece is to look at is when that would go. We would not want it tied to the same vote as town meeting in March. And so there will be a date that we would hope to have it proposed and warned so that we can have the town vote on it. But
And
it's
that's the.
it's not
decide
November.
that, right?
Yeah,
And so I think the other piece to that is at Tuesday's school board meeting, right? It's this coming Tuesday, I think,
yes.
for the board meeting, is to bring back that feedback to the board. To ask to say to the board, the group does not think November is doable, Mark does not think
It's
November
not
is doable. Please come up with a new timeline, and I think the board gets that. I think Mark's gonna push that.
Because at the end of the day, if we as a committee come up with, we back a proposal and we say this is what we come to understanding what we want to do. The last thing anybody wants to see is it to go down in the bond vote. It's hard to come back from that. And make it happen again.
Yeah.
So I think like Don's saying, we need to make sure we're taking the time to really put forward what.
Whatever we're pushing forward, obviously, you're gonna need buy-in from the town. This is
Yeah,
not
even
something
if
you're
it's
gonna
a
decide.
year.
It might take a lot longer than we want.
If it's, if they're sending mail-in ballots out to every Danville voter,
That's kind of happened pretty soon. What's the?
wouldn't, and I'm only thinking,
Yeah,
like town meeting day. That might be too soon as well, but if you have that vote on the ballot, then it goes to everybody instead of like having the expense of sending ballots out again. I don't see that being worthwhile or having to wait for November.
for the following.
Do we have to take the vote in November? Like, can we vote on this?
No,
No.
yeah,
Right,
no.
okay, that's,
The board can decide we want it
okay.
the
Although there's,
second Sunday of October. So, I mean, it's just,
The November vote is
The
easy one to get more people
Sure.
generally.
Sure.
It seems
It would be
unlikely.
good to get everyone in agreement,
Yeah.
to really broaden the net and to get as much agreement as we can. Because we'll have all diverse ideas and positions.
My own feeling is that if you put it out to members and people here can contact other people, you can however put it out, but at a certain point, you're gonna have to set a cutoff and for organizational purposes. So that at that point, okay, this is who it is, what it is, and then people can show up, open meeting, but their ability to affect the outcome is gone.
And
I don't know when that is, but I
Until
think you
there's a
have to
vote
do
on the
that.
so you have 40 people from group A, don't know if they're, but whatever, they're all similar thinking. And they make this decision, they don't come to the next meeting, but group B of like mind come, and it could just totally be. We're back to square one.
Yeah, you have to, at a certain point. New
You have to
members
have
can't
skin
come
in the
in.
game.
At a certain point, that's all it is.
Right.
So if A and B are there, that's the point where you.
And
So
so,
the question is, why is that not this point?
Excuse me?
so yeah,
So my question is, why is that not this point? Because we've had several open meetings. We've had months of school board meetings where this has been on the agenda. What do you need?
Well,
Not very well advertised.
Yeah, see, Marvin showed up today because somebody told him something. I think you give it a little bit more time and then you shut it down.
Yeah.
But he
I mean-
showed up and it's important because he knows the knowledge of the school and stuff, so.
I understand. So I'm
not
saying that.
long. I'm not saying 3 months.
maybe
So
next
the
meeting.
current advertising for the open meetings and through the school board
Yeah.
has been insufficient in your eyes. So what would need to change?
No,
What needs to change for us to meet your requirements to bring in other members? Because what you're saying is that we've, thus far, it's been insufficient. Not enough people have known about it. That's fine, great. Therefore, we need to change something. So what do we need to change to have new members come in that you would feel comfortable saying, yes, we have put this to the community long enough that we can say, yes, this is good, this is a representative community and we can move forward.
That's a good question.
Right.
I don't know.
That's
I think.
I know, but I'm. What I'm saying, we have a guy that just came in here who didn't know about it, who has knowledge. I'm not saying to you
Right,
that that's an insufficient. But whatever has been done can be done one more time at the next meeting, you can say, shut it down. You don't have to go 3 months down. I'm not saying that, but that's a reasonable thing to say.
I'm asking what we need to change.
You do the same thing you've done before, and if people don't show up, they don't show up. You have people in this room, and then it's done.
Okay.
I'm not saying to you, the idea, it's classic in the town that people come in, they don't go to the budget meetings, and then they go to a town meeting, but at this point, the only reason I'm saying that is Marvin showed up. Otherwise, I probably wouldn't have said.
I understand it, and so that's what I'm saying, is that therefore, it has clearly been insufficient. So
Right, so-
what would change?
What would change?
I don't have an answer as to what would change. I'm simply saying, give it a little more time, one more meeting, and then be done with it.
Shouldn't we have, given that this is an issue, shouldn't we develop some sort of plan to engage the community?
I know the calendar record is not a good avenue because nobody gets that
Sorry.
three-page new.
But what is? That's the question.
Yeah, right.
Unless you knock on every resident's door, even physically somebody at the paper.
Well, at the end of the day, the important thing is to make sure, I don't have an answer either, but. It's gonna have to go in front of the voters, so it's whatever we end up recommending or whatever. It's gonna be in all our best interest to make sure we got at least a reasonable cross-section of people.
Yeah.
Because otherwise, it's gonna be all for nothing anyway.
We just barely made, we met.
I think there's a difference between polling the community, getting their input and having them be a part of the advisory board. So those are both things that I think we should do. We should in some way, I don't know what it is, front porch forum, Facebook, whatever. See if anybody else wants to join the advisory group and cut it off next month.
Yeah.
Then there's the other step of polling the community, which I don't know what our budget is, school board, maybe nothing, but like, can we send out postcards to every taxpayer in Danville that like tells them what's going on. I mean, I don't know what our budget is for doing that kind of polling in the community, but there's other ways you could poll the community to get their input, which is different than them being on the advisory.
Right, I think we need something
No.
that's presented, right? Like we're polling them about what, like maybe be able to spend an option.
Well, that's my question. Are we polling them about the three options, or are we as a group picking an option and then presenting it to them?
Maybe this is the way I would see it. Handle most efficiently is, we solicit people to join the committee. And then that sort of shuts down. And then we do the work of looking at the options and, if we can make then we have a more open meeting to poll, give the community an opportunity to provide input to us, but it's like, here's what we're thinking. Do you have any input to that?
Bruce has his hand up on the screen.
Thanks, Dave.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
I agree with a lot of what is being said, but I also believe that people have an obligation to try to find a way to be informed. I can tell you, we've all recently, if you're a Danville resident, we've recently got our tax bills. Since we got our tax bills, I've had two people approach me, even though I'm no longer on the school board, one at Maple Fields and one at Marty's, asking me how much their taxes were going to go up because we were building a new school. I said, well, number one, your taxes, you should have just recently got a tax bill like I did. And I said, your taxes aren't going up right now. I said, that's still in the discussion. And I can speak from past experience. We do our best to let people know what's going on. And I certainly understand what Doug said, that, being on, when you make a decision, it does impact people's budget, or people's taxes. Obviously, this would be over a long period of time, and it would be a bond. So we would be paying off the bond, and your taxes wouldn't increase dramatically, but they're certainly going to increase. I'm fine with saying we have one more meeting and see who shows up, and then who wants to be on the committee. But then we have work to do. And I also agree November is probably too quick. But if we were going to try to present something, somebody said town meeting day. Obviously, the budget has to be approved by the board, usually by the end of January, so that can go in the town report. And that's just things to think about. I'm fine with not rushing through this, but I'm also think that we have to realize that people do have an obligation to try to find a way to what's going on in your community and what's going on with your school, rather than hoping they can find a school board member or a former school board member somewhere someday and take their time to say, well, how much is this going to cost me? Because we did our research on this. It's all out there on the Danville website. I realize people are going to say, well, not everyone has internet, not everyone has access to computers, but there are ways that we can work with them to get them informed.
All right. I wonder if this is the time now to do two things. I think maybe we're at the point where we need to pick when our next meeting and maybe the next couple meetings to get them on our calendars. That's going to be a challenge, but it can be done. And then I'm thinking I came up with 6 from the conversation just now, 6 ways to put the word out. Caledonia Record, Front Porch Forum, Facebook. I don't know if we do signs in the green telling you what's happening on the green. Maybe they'll put one up. Somebody knows somebody. We can
The
put.
school board will post at Marty's.
Oh, good. Yeah, I got Marty's. Signs at Marty's was next.
Hastings,
Yeah,
I
signs at
believe in North Danville.
signs at Marty's plus, and then we can do like a school messenger thing. We can send them out to the parent community, so they would get it that way as well.
That would be helpful.
And so if we pick either agree who's going to do which of those, or pick the meeting dates, they got to do both of those before we leave.
Are we able
Yes.
to hitchhike so when they mail the ballots out for the November vote, I don't know when they mail those out, if it's let's say mid-September. Is there any way we can little card in there or something, and it's like, well, you know what, you're gonna send it for 85 cents anyway.
My guess is no. My guess is that election law would say that it is only the approved items that the Secretary of State, I mean, but I am just guessing. Anyone know?
You can't just send anything with those things.
That's
Those
what-
are-
yeah.
Those, that's very locked down.
One thing
Yeah.
is a letter you're sending out or.
Yeah, now we might be able to look at whatever, ask at the board to approve a small expenditure and a mailing townwide. I have no idea what it costs, but it could be done. I can't do it.
Bruce, do you remember if we did a like a postcard mailing for the merger proposal, the Act 46 merger proposals?
I think we did something. I know we did a couple of forums, which we got a good turnout for one. We didn't get a good turnout for the second one. Because I remember Marvin was sitting there and I had asked the janitors to set up about 50 chairs. I think we had about 10 people show up. And I'm thinking we did a mail-in, but I just can't be sure, Dave. And maybe somebody that's a town resident can remember if they got something in the mail on that.
I would think that, and I would abstain from the vote or from the vote, but to ask the school board to consider that postage of a mailing would be reasonable.
My guess that town clerk would probably have a sense of how many pieces of mail we're talking about, and then we can do the math.
Give you the exact number.
I would hope.
So 1,500. I know there's a couple extra
Oh, right.
tax bills that are sent out. I don't know how many of those are residents.
Okay,
I do think you could get a list of, because it's resident and non-resident, I've seen searches done on that. So it could well be that you could do a search of residents of the town, which I think is where you want to go. And that would give you a list. And I do believe that's public knowledge and
Okay.
stuff, so.
if it's 1,500 stamps or what, about 50 cents a piece right now? I don't even know anymore.
Easy math, yeah.
So that's $750 out of, and if the board choose to appropriate that from, or let us get that out of athletics.
Yeah, absolutely. No, what are we considering sending out, right? Right.
Well,
The concept, yeah, are we just considering sending out, hey, if you want to be part of this committee, we meet in 2 weeks, or are we waiting to send out a straw poll in 3 months?
So I have a question of what's the charge of this group? So I know on the top we've said the group is to advise the school board on a recommended course of action. I'm confused about whether that is whoever decides to join this group, we vote in some way, which we haven't decided how that vote would be.
Right.
One of the 3 options, or option 4, do nothing. Or is this group trying to gather more information from the whole of the community in order to decide which of those options? Because that would determine what's on that mailing.
So the charge of the group is to give that recommendation. The strategies to get to that recommendation are undefined.
Okay.
And and it sounds like we want to, if we want to get input from people who aren't on the group, that's what we're talking about.
Yep.
Polling people
And
to
maybe,
hear their views, not to ask them to vote.
Right.
Because that's the board's job. The board will ask them to vote on something.
I don't
someday in the future.
think the school board, I know I didn't, as a school board, wearing the school board hat, didn't consider mailing something out
Right.
or something like that. And if this group wants to say, hey, school board, you should consider this, then that's doing exactly what this group should be doing. So we can't do our job unless.
And the board can
and-
say
and
yes,
pretty
no,
much,
or find a way to
it's like,
push it yourself.
too bad, have a bake sale, or we will appropriate a number for stamps,
Right.
whatever, but.
Okay.
I'm sorry.
Sorry, Rob. Melissa, no, go Rob. I'll wait.
Okay, our other option is invite people at the next meeting. and just explain that is to get their ideas. And perhaps it's a facilitated meeting. But after that, they are part of the group, but they express those ideas and get them out, at least all the ideas. And after that, then we have a defined group that proceeds.
I think it will
How
also,
many?
oh, sorry, Sarah, I didn't mean to step in.
Well, that's okay.
Sarah, go ahead.
Okay, I think Melissa, that was you that asked that question. My understanding has been that yes, this group would help to gather input, whether it's formal or casual, in Marty's, like Bruce was talking about, from the town, so that those of the group who are members of the group that will vote to then recommend to the school board have that wider perspective.
So are we asking for the next meeting for new members and then the meeting after that? Or public input?
I was suggesting that the next meeting be the group members plus anyone else who wants to express their opinions. And after that, then the next meeting is just the group. That's what I was suggesting.
I don't know if we're allowed to do that, Rob.
What's the obstacle?
I think it has to be open to the public.
Oh, you mean the group get together after that?
Yeah.
Well,
The group.
I believe so.
But it was, so
Shouldn't be involved in decisions.
Right.
Oh, I see.
they could certainly observe and listen. Like, and
Yeah.
So
They exclude people, you can't do
yeah,
that.
we need to come up with a way to identify the membership that will vote on
Yeah.
and proceed with creating the presentation.
All right, so, yes, sir.
Then you have established something different than what we started this meeting as. If you're gonna
How so?
establish a voting body, then it is a committee, not an advisory group. And it's, I will abstain from voting on that there, but the suggestion of, we have a group of 11 or 40 or whatever, you can't have 400 people coming in here and everybody has say.
Right,
There has to be a checklist of, do you pay taxes? Are you a registered voter? There has to be a checklist that this group comes up with. And
so could we make some guidelines for us that says that at the end of the process, that we don't vote, but that we have discussion for weeks, possibly months, and we work to achieve consensus. And I'm defining consensus as a decision that everyone in the group can live with, not vote for, which is a yes or a no, but that the group can move forward with, because all we're really doing is passing it forward anyway. We're not implementing it. We're not putting it to the taxpayers to vote for. Our job is not to do anything else except say, after some study, which includes the community and the work we choose to do, we think option X is the best as a group, or, much of the group thought it was the best. Some opposing views were this, and the board takes that, because the board is the one that makes the decision ultimately on what option to go with. But we could get through a series of discussions that I'm guessing Tom could help us navigate. We could get to something close to consensus where each person might say, yeah, I can live with it. I don't like it, or I really like this other thing, but I could live with that as the way forward. And then we present that to the board. this is the one we most can live with. And the board takes it and does what they choose. And the board has to then dig in, it's on its own with the information we present, with the view we present. Right, we're not deciding for them.
Right.
And so we could do that over the next several meetings, I believe we can get to that point. Doug and then Melissa.
I just think it's gonna be kind of tricky. I don't disagree with what you're saying totally. It just. How do you get from, the, what's been laid out by the board, I understand, but. At this point, we're gonna have a few different meetings. If we can't actually take any kind of formal vote. At some point, it needs to boil down, even for this group here, to take some sort of formal vote. Because everybody here has a slightly different opinion, and I understand you're saying, yeah, we need some sort of consensus, but how do you arrive at that? Especially even if there's other people involved within the next couple meetings, it's all it's gonna do is confuse things a little bit more. So I think maybe one possibility, especially if we're gonna, not decide anything here. I think this has been a very good discussion so far. But go back to the board and maybe Dave or, somebody can say, maybe we need a little more clarification because we have some concerns over how to proceed. Here, I don't know.
That should probably be I suggest it be somebody other than the two of us. That would present it to the board, whether in writing or in person. But at the school board meeting, we need to sit on this side of the table and call it the presentation or the presenter is on this side of the table.
Well, I don't know if anybody else agrees with what I just said, but that's my concern to a degree. I can see.
Right, it's just that I don't feel comfortable bringing it.
Right, so
saying, oh, this is what I think.
Makes sense,
Because,
Dave.
I know how I'm gonna vote already.
will? Is there someone who will do that?
I can do that.
In a second, I'll remember your name soon.
It's Eric.
Eric, no, I was gonna get to Eric. Yes, I know, because I had a system to get there. It just takes a minute. I apologize, Eric. For the
You're fine.
long day.
You're fine.
So Eric, I think the next meeting is the 6th at 6 p.m. in this very space and on Zoom. That's not
this group.
no, of the board, of the school.
The school board.
The school board, the next school board meeting is I'm pretty
6th at
6th at 6.
6 to 6. Okay.
Let me just make sure that's right. It is
Yeah.
6th at 6, and it's here. It's also on Zoom. It's available, I think, still, right?
I should be able to physically make it.
Better. I mean, beautiful.
So,
Yes.
I mean, is what you're saying that an advisory is to lose? And really what we should do is the board should consider forming a committee with members with ability to vote and make a firm recommendation versus just sitting around here. In other words, members, we would shut it down, we would do whatever. And then we would be a formal committee. And then we would present something. Of course, we can't make any decisions or anything like that, but
The ultimate decision.
no, it's not ours. But it also seems like this, I think if we just keep meeting as an advisory committee, advisory group or whatever, it doesn't seem like we'll ever get there. And I do think we need to make a vote because we may have a split in here and that's okay if people disagree. But that needs to then be said to the school board as a whole. I get why they.
Nope, sorry, I thought you were done.
Go ahead, sir.
Go, sir.
Who set a hand up?
We,
I'm sorry.
I don't think Bruce has put his hand down. I don't know if he still has it up.
Oh.
We did initially the board started out with this as a committee and chose to shift it to an advisory group. I feel like there could be a vote. It's not, it's a decision amongst the people and it's a formal way to collect everybody's opinions. It's again, then this team advises the school board on what's next. It's not the final decision at all.
And
Was it
I
a,
guess not, sorry.
was it a? Would the, your understanding, would the advisory group be able to request that it could be a committee?
I mean, that wasn't the discussion I heard at any of the board meetings, but I don't see why,
I mean, the same thing with your postcards, it
I
just,
mean, it can't,
there's
I don't
only
see
so
why it
much
can't
stuff
be
that we
brought
can,
back.
we can think of.
Right, I don't see why that can't be discussed by the board.
If we can't vote and we can't limit membership
Yeah.
to make the decision, how can we possibly hope to come through with anything? And I'm so sorry, I just went over, get your head. But I mean, how can you possibly hope to come together? I mean, at that point, you're going to just leave it to somebody's going to do all the work and present it as this committee, or as this group, but it really won't be, I mean, it'll be a committee of one essentially at that point. So that's,
I think Katie and then,
that's the
I
question.
know.
That's my question, I guess.
There's a
Yeah.
both had your hands up for a while, Katie and Gary.
Do we know
Katie and
for
Gary.
sure that an advisory group can't have a vote? Has that been established? That would answer one of these questions. If we can have a vote, then great.
I don't see why we couldn't as a informal group of people
Yeah,
getting
it doesn't,
together.
it's not binding anything. We're not making any town decisions. It's just voting to make a recommendation. I don't know. So that's
But I don't
question
know.
number one. And number two is that I know that there was a reason why the school board switched from committee to advisory group. I don't know exactly what all those reasons were, but there was a reason. So
could Sarah help us with that? Sarah, could you,
And back and forth a few
I think it
times.
made it
Under
easier.
the advice. No,
It was that a committee has a decision is to make a decision, not to recommend something. So we didn't want, this wasn't supposed to be like a binding.
Right, we're
vote.
not trying to do
Right.
that. We just want the
So-
ability to vote between ourselves in order to recommend something.
Right.
so,
right,
We can-
the decision is what you present,
Right.
I'm sorry.
right, and I think we can figure out, or we can define the process that we want to work with to come up with a recommendation, like towards the end, we might take like, not necessarily a formal vote, but like, okay, let's straw poll, who likes this, who likes that? And then, try to reach a consensus. If there's a significant division, two camps, well, maybe
Maybe
we just
we-
share that with them.
And we treat it like a Supreme Court decision where there's a majority opinion and a minority opinion. And we hand them both to the board and say, some of the group felt this strongly about this, and some of the group felt this.
But you have to at some
And-
point limit membership.
Yeah,
You
I
have
think,
to at some point
so,
be willing to
That-
make a vote.
that was
Now, I don't
written
know, say
on
you
the
call it
numbers.
for semantics between advisory or committee, but those are two things that have to happen.
Yeah.
To be workable, that's what has to happen.
okay,
Well,
And
I
I
think-
and I don't
Yeah.
know,
no, I think we can,
and I don't think anybody doesn't understand that we have no ability to make the decision.
No, but we can.
I think we're trying to get a structure so that we can work.
Yep.
Mhm.
And it doesn't. I don't know, it seems kind of.
so Melissa and David, their hands up, and then I have a
Sorry.
proposal
Oh,
unless they
I'm
make it.
sure.
No, you're doing fine.
I
It's
think
just-
to the point of limiting membership and whether this is a ground rule or something, I do think that there is an onus on the people agreeing to be a part of this process, to come here educated, to come here having sort of like be familiar with the report. I'm not talking about tonight, I'm talking about moving forward. So that we're not always backtracking and having to rehash all of that. So I don't know if it's a ground rule or sort of where it belongs, but I think there's some onus on people to be aware of kind of where we're at.
Okay, and then David his hand, and then Marvin, and then,
The smartest person I
propose.
know on all of this is Robert Edgar. I'm telling you, he knows everything about everything there is on this Robert, not Thomas.
I was just like, Thomas might be wrong. And I'm guessing, I don't know, I'm still new enough, but I'm
You have
looking at
not
his
had-
face and I'm guessing that
You have
there's
not
a
had the
connection
privilege
between
of
Robert
meeting
and
Robert
Thomas.
Ed.
Are they maybe, related in some way?
It's his father.
I kind of guessed by the look
Um,
that I was getting from Thomas. Nice.
And maybe just an email to Robert Edgar. He could say, this is this. I mean, he has come up with some incredible stuff. And everything from CCSU to how the Danville board operates. Wealth of knowledge, just, I think it would serve the group.
So maybe,
I think it would serve the community best
So-
interest to ask Robert Edgar, no pressure, but
well, we've got an in, or and maybe instead of coming to the board to propose that, maybe you could work with Thomas to talk to his dad. Or just call Robert Ed yourself. And let Thomas focus on doing his homework or something.
or Mr. Robert could get this recording
Yeah,
and he might say, no. Or
yeah, no,
whatever,
he'll
but I think-
know.
I think not passing it across his desk would be foolish for the
So,
community to.
Eric, are you willing to talk to him, or Thomas, is that a task?
I'm more than happy to. I just do not know Roger Eggers. That's somebody else.
Robert, yeah.
Robert.
Well,
see?
there's his son right there. At the end of the meeting, would you connect? And
I,
two of
yeah,
you can-
I will connect,
the
but
two of
if
you
if
can
somebody
figure
else
out-
had a relationship.
Oh, someone else has one. I just figured because we already
Yeah.
tagged you for something.
I'm happy to do it.
Anyone else prefer to? Because you have a relationship with
I mean,
Robert?
people
Edgar?
cold all the time, so.
You guys want to talk at the end and you can figure out,
Sure.
Okay.
and then you guys can work through that. And at the next meeting, hopefully, or an email sooner if he's got it, we'll have some sort of answer.
Mhm.
I'd like to go back to,
Well, did you want?
oh, sorry, right.
Yeah.
I have kind of a pointed question and I'm sorry to begin with when we say this, but I assume you must be part of the architectural group,
No,
you
who
know,
lives in
no.
town.
so I won't step on your toes.
no.
Okay.
My
The
son was an
meeting I
engineer.
attended earlier in the year, spring, April, May, there was a lot of information in the $32,000 plan that was false, incorrect. And I don't know how we can get a $32 million.
No, that's- I thought you-
Sorry,
It's okay,
it's old age. How we can get a $32 million budget on a project when a lot of the information was false.
Okay,
Insulation on the roof, asbestos tile under the carpets, there's a lot of stuff that just. I had a problem even listening to them, that we've got a architect telling us stuff that is incorrect, is false, and we've got a value on it, and it's
Right.
not even there.
okay.
So are we
Would you,
way ahead of ourselves here to try to set a budget when what we're budgeting is coming not factual.
yeah, I wonder if you could, if you had the time to go through the report and identify the things that you believe are wrong, because, for
Well,
me,
when I sat through the
I-
presentation, I had to raise my hand every time I turned around, and I know the guy was sick of looking at me. But I know for a fact, because I was here for 30 years and I know
I'm not,
exactly.
absolutely, I'm not,
What's in and what's
I'd
not
love
in
to
this
capture
building.
that, I'd love to, that's what I'm
But they
saying.
tell me that there's no insulation in the roof, and I know there's at least 4 inches of rigid insulation. In some places there's 5.5, so that's all a lie, and if you figured in the cost of insulating the roof, then there's a number that's astronomical that shouldn't be in there.
Right,
So how
so,
can we figure?
yes, so
that
can you, would you go through and identify the things that you know are wrong? Because I don't know any of the stuff you know,
Right.
I'm again,
you
I
know,
have another question.
and we have that whole, one sec, we have that whole report, 211 pages. I can print it for you if that's an issue, right? But if you're willing to go through it, then we can get them to respond to that, and either they made assumptions or they're just wrong. Or something has changed or something.
I mean,
you
you
know.
can put a number on a brand new building. That was an easy.
Absolutely, so if I could get you that report,
Yeah,
or,
I looked through it.
okay,
I may not be ready to respond.
you need,
by the end of the year.
well, how much homework, Right, we'll give you, when does homework usually due, Thomas? How long do you get? A night, 2 nights?
Well, look, if you had several things that were verifiably false on that report, that's cause to get a second opinion, like to go out and redo that thing. I mean, that could be a recommendation that we would have. Like if there are things, if you have a handful of things, I mean, you don't have to go through the whole report and file errata on the whole thing. But if we have things that you say, hey, there's 4.5 inches of rigid insulation on the 1937 roof, great, let's go up. Is there 4.5 inches on there, or has that changed since you've been here? Yes or no?
Jason, I can get a.
I'm not doubting your veracity.
Yeah, no,
Just what I'm saying
let's
is
go
like,
through that
that's
process.
the steps.
A few things.
Get us a
Yes.
few things as soon as possible. And then we can, that's maybe our first recommendation is, hey, we doubt the veracity of this report. And we have good reason to,
Right.
right?
I will get it printed tomorrow and get a message to you, call you, whatever, somebody. Let you know to come.
Right.
It's gonna be too big to mail.
Yeah.
And I'll find a binder to put it in or something. It's gonna take that much.
Is that a reasonable
Yeah,
request?
well, I
And
think if,
Process
I
forward?
don't want to stir up the bees, but I don't mind looking at this because I know there was plenty of things.
yeah,
Yeah.
I mean,
That's fine. I'm asking you to put ink on paper.
yes,
And no
he's
one questioned it.
agreed
I
to
had
do that.
questions. I had to question.
Yeah.
And I think the guy thought I was a pain in the ass, and I was,
That's fine.
but right.
So, yes.
And I thought at the time, this architect that's figuring redoing this school and redoing the electrical and the plumbing, and I think that's all stupid too, but and I haven't even met the guy. I worked here 30 years and I didn't meet the architect. That's a little.
Right, so I will get it, I'll, let you know when it's available. It'll be tomorrow at some point. I'll get Cassie to work on that tomorrow. The front office, we'll get to that, and then you'll put it around as fast as you can, with as much detail as you're willing to put in.
Right.
And we'll go forward with that once we have it.
Yeah.
In the meantime,
And we'll talk to the architect.
yeah, well, sure, I mean, and that'll be, we'll probably, I would think we would discuss bringing that to the board right away, whether we have a recommendation ready or not for anything else. If we have that level of info.
It's not as bad as I.
Right, so that's why, exactly, so let me get that to you.
Yep.
You'll get that going. In the meantime, we have to, we have to all agree on how we're going to get any additional members to our next meeting and close membership there. Which I think is what we've been saying for a while, right? And so we've got the Caledonia Record on the call, so he'll put it in an article, hopefully, maybe a day in advance instead of the day of. I don't know if Andrew heard me, but we'll get to the date as soon as we vote on it in a minute.
Heard.
Yes, good, we heard, good.
Noted.
So is there somebody who could do a front porch forum posting?
Should someone come up, someone come up with a message that we all like?
Well, this is just
I don't
the
wanna put
looking for members and getting them. So yes, once we have the date, it'll be really easy to write a 2-sentence. The Danville School Building Advisory Committee is looking for new members. Please join us at, and then the date and time. It's gonna be simple.
Let's figure out a date and a message and
Yeah.
then we'll take post.
So I suggest.
Who's gonna do? You suggest what?
Yeah.
On a doodle.
Well-
Yeah, a week from tonight.
Perhaps, but what day of the week is it?
Wednesday.
It's Wednesday, so we don't have the board meeting Wednesday.
Oh, you do?
No, it's Tuesday.
Yeah.
Wait. Let me just finish with getting commitments. You're gonna do front porch if I send you a text?
I just think it's important that we probably
Yes.
all put the
Oh,
same.
we're all
message
gonna have-
out, so
yes,
if
I'm
you
gonna-
Give us a message to put on Facebook. Front
Yeah.
Porch
I
Forum.
just wanna know who's gonna do front
No,
porch.
get off of that. Let's get date, message done, and then,
Okay.
and then it's easy just to do all of them all at once and one
Right,
person.
2 sentences and a date.
Yeah.
Yes, I can write the message easily. I'll do that as soon as we pick a date. Who's gonna put it on front porch forum?
I will put it on front. Porch
Okay,
Forum.
Katie. Who's gonna put it on Facebook?
I can.
Rand.
Mr. Rathman, do we have it on
Where does that go to?
the town and the school?
Speaking of the school, if you write, if you,
Sure, I'll work with Dave to put it on the Danville School Facebook page.
and anywhere else you can think of on Facebook.
Yeah.
Who could talk to someone at the town about putting a sign in the green? If we even want to do that. I mean,
Yeah, sure. I
Eric,
can do it, but
I don't know, maybe it's a bad idea. I drive in every day. I see the signs of what's happening in the green that night. I'm like, oh, that sounds good. I don't go to any of it.
I don't know when,
If it's a bad idea, don't do it.
I don't think this, I don't know when the next select board meeting is.
I don't even know.
I think Bruce spoke up about.
Bruce, yes. What did you say?
I'm sorry, I think I must have hit something. Or are you asking me something?
No, someone thought you spoke and we wanted to make sure we knew.
I thought you spoke, Bruce,
No,
on,
He sneezed, maybe.
all right. I'm sorry.
Who will put up some sort of notice that I guess we can commemorate at Marty's or the various places, Marty's and Hastings, and somebody can do that?
I can do that.
Sign. Okay, Bruce.
Is it, am I supposed to make something or am I gonna have somebody gonna send me something to put up?
If I send out the language that we're gonna agree on tonight, can you make something or do you need help with that?
Bruce, we'll make it and you can just pick it up at the school in a day or two.
Yeah, I'll put it at Tasting Store, I'll put it at North Danville School, put it at Marty's.
Perfect.
Post office. I used to put something at the recycling, but that's, I can, well, yeah, I can still put it at the new recycling, so yeah.
Okay, and I'll work with the front office to send it out on school messenger to parents, because I can do that, or Sarah and I will take care of that. Okay, so now we have like a communication plan for our next meeting. And we'll send you all an email saying what it should say in the next, by the end of the week, in the next day.
So will it be on the school committee website too? Or
I don't know.
would that be good or not?
I think the answer is yes.
Okay,
I just don't know how to do that, but I'll find out. Sarah will hopefully tell me how we get it on the school committee website.
okay.
But I'll write that down, school committee website. It's probably Katie Callan. Katie Callan, is that her name?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes,
I'm learning fast. But man, there's a lot. School committee website. Okay. Now the big one. When are we going to meet? There's a proposal for next Wednesday.
Actually, that might be a bit early. It might be better to do the week after.
Give a little more time to.
Yeah.
Okay.
for people
Can
to-
I
Which is
remind,
the,
so can I just remind everybody, since we're such a big group of members already, we have to have 6 that agree.
Yep.
And can agree upon the dates. Obviously, we want as many as possible. And so just as a reminder, those, I'm trying to find it, you, in my notes. I know it's in front of you.
they said one of the 2 of us, 1 board member, and 4 others
Yep.
from the group in order to actually hold the meeting. So in other words, I think what she's getting at is we might not get 100%. Yes,
No.
I can come, but if we get most, we're going to go with it, or else we'll never, ever get out of here.
So that would be considered, this might be a bad word to say, but that would be considered the forum.
Quorum?
Forum.
Quorum? Oh, I was just saying, what is, yeah,
You need a forum.
That is what you as a school board voted
Yes,
on,
that was-
had to be
apart
there.
from the- is that, to have a quorum, to hold the meeting, we need to have 6 of the members with 1 of the 2 board members, 1 of the 2 principals, and then whoever else. Hopefully we get many more than that.
So Wednesday, September 14th.
We've
is the
got-
Proposal.
A motion for Wednesday and roughly the same time, 5:30 or something like that. And
Does anybody, while we're doing this, does anybody look at the sports calendar?
I've got it.
I got it open. There's no game. I have it open.
Games.
There's no games on the
Night
4th.
games.
Yeah, I was gonna say, he shared it with me. That one was the-
There's no home games on the 14th because I will be out of town for the night, so.
Yeah, so there's no games at all.
Be
There's no
here
games at
for
all.
a game or for the meeting, which is.
Right, we can move without Randy. There's no sports
Yeah.
that night. We have to, I know Sarah would have to be done by 7, but we can, if she is there for most of the meeting.
And
That's
as
definitely
Just missing class
Bobrovsky-
right now. It's okay.
I can't,
I'm okay with that. You are, but.
can anyone hear me?
Yes.
Bruce.
Yeah, I can't be there for the 14th. As I said, I'm coaching 2 teams. I'm coaching the middle school boys at Danville. We don't have a game that day, but I also coach freshman soccer at St. J Academy. And I do have a game that day at Enosburg at 4:30, but that's fine. If that works for everybody else, go with it. I'm just saying I can't be there. And I'm sure you can do that without me.
No brood.
So then the question is, I think waiting 2 weeks is a good idea. Do we have 6 people that can make it? Larry,
I
me,
can. Eric
I
can.
can make it.
I can make it.
Doug, Ken, I don't remember everyone's name, so I'm not gonna say
Not
names
sure.
where, it looks like we got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Plus any new people, so I think we've got enough, including the
Done.
right split. So there we go. Woo, okay, and we'll do 5:30 here. And we'll do, yeah, do we want to book the one after that now as well?
Yes.
Because
2 week
2 week later, which I might not be available for that one, but Sarah would be. Yeah, the week after is open house, so we can't do it that week. The 28th, the 28th, there is varsity girls versus Craftsbury and sports photos 3 to 6. So that is that a time that we should avoid completely? Okay, we might miss you or for some or all of the media.
Yeah, but I could most likely arrange to come in off the soccer field a bit early.
Okay,
Are we talking about the 28th?
yes,
Yeah.
Okay.
we're looking for 2 weeks after. Yeah, is that, do we have people who think they can make the 28th?
Yeah,
We got at least one no, but 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We've got enough to do the 28th. Okay, and we'll do 5:30 and again here. But we'll be missing a couple people.
Let's get that. Mr. Zabrowski.
Yes, so we'll,
She's our facilitator.
and who is contacting Mr. Zabrowski?
I could do that.
Great,
I
Um,
could try to, but,
okay,
yeah.
all right. Is there other business or, yes,
Okay, one little thing.
yeah?
I don't know if Marvin is formally on this board or been
Oh.
voted, but I was wondering if it might be a consensus of the board to have somebody recommend to the school board
Yeah,
to vote him on.
the board says that we can make our own, we can add our own members.
Right, you can just
Okay.
do that without.
Well,
So if Marvin said he's gonna keep showing up, he's on. If Marvin doesn't want to come back, he's not on. I mean, I think, right, because,
I got read all on the page before.
well, yeah, you got homework for 2 weeks, I know you'll be back.
Yeah, so the idea that we talked about before was next week, we add any additional members and then cap, or not next week, but the next meeting.
14, yeah.
Okay. We add any additional members and cap it there. Is that correct? Is that still?
That's
Those
what we're-
members and public is invited.
Yes.
Yep. Yep. All right, is there any other business? I'm gonna send out the link to the report. Or I'm gonna give Dave the link of Dave Schilling, the emails, and he'll send it out, but we'll get it out to you so you can all read all 211 pages. It actually is really fascinating, whether hopefully it's true, hopefully more of it is true than we're scared of now.
No, I
But
think
it's-
most of it's true.
okay. There's some things. It's actually, I mean, as an incoming administrator into the building, it was amazing to learn that much about the building in one thing.
I think it's important that sorry, but I think that we all read this, just.
Yeah, I'm gonna send it out to everybody, yeah,
Right.
I mean, it's
And
it's
it's-
our shared set of facts.
yeah, and then we'll,
My email down has been down for 3 weeks. You can do a hard copy.
yeah, I'm gonna do the hard copy. If your email's down, what is your phone number then, so we can call you to tell you it's ready?
My phone is 535-6782. I can just come pick it up.
Yeah, I just, yes, so someone will call to say it's actually printed in a binder. I would want you to come and have it available. Let me do that.
Let me do that.
You're gonna do that, Cassie?
When you send it to me, I'll print it out. I'll let Martha know.
Okay, perfect. Any other future dates or work items or anything else for the last item on the agenda? All right, then I guess I would, act like it's a formal meeting and say I'd entertain a motion to adjourn.
I'll make the motion.
I move.
Motion moved, that's moved and seconded, meeting adjourned. Whew. Thank you all very much.
thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Yeah,
everybody.
I think it bodes well for the future of the school. We got some interesting